Namaskar and a very good morning. Welcome to the audiocast from Kotak Securities. I'm your host and guide Anindya Bannerjee. Kal US FOMC minutes came out, which is basically the minutes of the last US central bank meeting, and that was clear that Fed said that they are going to go for a 50 basis point rate hike at least in the next two meetings, which is June and July. So the hawkish stance of the Fed continues, and Fed also said that the demand remains very strong in the economy, and with supply issues in place, unless they bring down demand, inflation is not going to come down, which means they're acknowledging the obvious truth that only way to bring down inflation is to actually push demand down, which means to slow the economy. Things can go wrong, the calculations can go wrong, and sometimes this slowing economic thing can turn into an outright recession, but that's the risk. And जिसका जो impact है, जिसका reflection है, we are seeing in the equity markets. Equity markets have been under pressure for the last few months. India में तो since September of last year. So slower global growth, slower domestic growth is hurting equities and higher cost of funds. Dollar rupee का situation अभी अगर देखें तो it's very much range bound इसके लिए कि higher levels में RBI का selling है. RBI has clearly said that they don't want a very weak rupee. They are basically indicating that they want the Indian rupee to be an average performer. Now dollar is pretty mixed globally. एक तरफ against the CNH it has appreciated last 24 hours, but against the majors like euro, pound, etc. it has remained weak. So ये situation में for the rupee to depreciate on its own, it will be difficult because RBI is going to come and intervene aggressively because it doesn't want rupee to become a significantly weaker currency, because weaker rupee feeds into inflation, and inflation is becoming a problem in India. So therefore upside is capped closer to 78 on the futures. Downside is supported because global जो sentiment है वो fragile है. 2 दिन का rally आता है equity markets में, third day sell off हो जाता है. So ये situation में it's going to be a range bound. Now because of this range bound nature, option premiums have come down dramatically, which in another way of saying that is the implied volatility on options have come off dramatically, which means the risk to reward is not so favorable as it was even, let's say, a week or 2 weeks back. But as long as the range bound nature continues, selling options would remain the preferred strategy, because the historical realized volatility is going to keep on undershooting the implied volatility even at these low levels of IVs. Therefore, if you don't want to do a straddle which has a little higher risk than a strangle, you can consider doing a strangle. Or if you want to hedge yourself, you can even think of a butterfly or iron fly with weekly options which are expiring or maturing on 3rd of June, which is next week, next week's Friday. Those things you can definitely do. If you are looking to bet on the upside, which considering the fact that RBI is heavily intervening, but you still want to bet on the upside, one way of doing it is through buying ratio call spreads. So for example, the trades which we have done is we have bought 78 half and sold 79 twice. We have bought 78 quarter and sold 75 twice call options. तो इसमें क्या है कि we have received net inflows. एक में 11.5 पैसा, एक में 9.5 पैसा. So in case the dollar rupee, this kind of strategy has worked out quite well over the past few months, because एक upward drift है, but at every level RBI is coming, so it is taking time to move up. And this works well for such a strategy, because when it goes up slowly, this trade becomes a call spread. When the market remains lower or falls, it becomes a short call. So a ratio call spread is a good way to bet on the upside. Now on the crosses, GBP/INR has bounced back overnight. तो हो सकता है GBP/INR में आज buying रहे, or same goes for Euro/INR as well. So that's it, folks. This is Anindya Bannerjee signing off. A fantastic day ahead.